This happened way back in 2005. I was 18. I was living in Uvalde, Texas, a very low-income neighborhood, the kind you'll find sprawled out all over the place in rural Texas when you're not right outside of a city. The closest city to me was San Antonio.
Ooh,
I was
yes.
going to some local community
I don't
college,
even live in
because that's
Texas.
all my
Like,
parents could
whatever.
afford for me. One of my best friends from high school, Andrew, moved to San Antonio to go to San Antonio College. He was living in some small apartment a little outside of the city with a roommate. His girlfriend would also often stay with him.
Oh,
Since the city's
cute.
only really an hour and a half away, I would visit him all the time. He invited me this one weekend to come crash for the night, so I took my trusty old 1995
Worst
Toyota
idea
pickup
ever.
truck. Nah,
Oh
just
my gosh,
kidding.
no
The thing
wonder
was
it's
a
gonna
piece
run out of
crap.
freaking
The
gas.
gas gauge didn't even work on
You
it.
said piece
I'd have
of
to always
crap.
just
Yeah, I
keep
can
track
see
of when
that.
the last time I filled the tank up was, then reset the
Oh
trip
my gosh,
mileage.
no.
I took Route 90, which was a straight shot from Uvalde to San Antonio. I was on the road at like 3 p.m. on a Friday, and there was no traffic at all. I got to
Nice.
Andrew at a reasonable time. His girlfriend wouldn't be getting there until tomorrow, so tonight we were going to go out.
Boys'
We
night.
stopped at a liquor store and we drank in his apartment for a while with his roommate. Then the three of us went to this dive bar that would kind of look the other way with fake IDs. That was basically our night. We got back to their apartment around 2 a.m. after getting food. I slept on the couch. The next day would have almost been the same thing, but Andrew and his girlfriend were having issues all day, and as the two of them got drunker as the night progressed, she started yelling at him in front of me.
Jeez,
It got
freaking
really
toxic
awkward and
much?
uncomfortable. I didn't really have much to drink that day because I was already iffy about staying the night with her there. I eventually decided I would just head
Oh,
back
he's a
home.
little
Said goodbye
uncomfy.
to
He's
everyone and
like,
started my journey home.
third wheel is not for
It was
me.
very
Bye.
late at night. I want to guess
Why at
midnight,
night?
maybe a little
Oh, hell
earlier.
no.
Route 90 was deserted at this time, so I would fly for my pickup standards. But suddenly the engine started sputtering. I felt my heart completely drop
Yeah,
as I realized
good
I forgot to
idea.
fill up the tank.
The
I slowed
perfect
down,
time,
but it was
you
too late.
idiot.
The engine cut. I pulled to the side of the road and tried starting it a few times, but it did no good. I took out my cell phone, which was equally as shitty as my truck. I tried to get a signal. No shot. I couldn't even call for help.
Oh, you
I
are
just
so
put my
screwed.
hazards on and hope a good
Ain't no
Samaritan would
friggin'
pass.
way.
You wouldn't believe how long I sat in the side of the road before seeing headlights.
I mean, he was
My arms
hurrying
as
up
the
to get
car
home and he
approached.
friggin' forgot,
It
yo, to
zoomed
friggin'
past me,
put
ignoring
gas.
me. This happened again after another 10 minutes or
Jeez.
so.
See,
I
no.
was starting to feel hopeless, like maybe I should just sleep in my car and wait till sunrise to get help. So that's what I was gonna do. I got inside my car, took the key out of the ignition to cut the battery, and just angled my seat back to go to sleep. I would hear the occasional car zooming past like once every 10 minutes, but it didn't feel worth waving people down in the dark. It seemed sketchy for myself and to the people in the cars, but when I was starting to actually drift away to sleep, a car door closing from behind me woke me up.
Oh, who the
I
hell
looked
is
in the
that?
rearview mirror and saw a car pulled up behind me with its headlights off. I turned around now to get a better look. There was some big pickup truck, but I couldn't see anyone inside of it, nor did I see anyone outside of it. Maybe someone pulled over to help. I got out of the
No.
car and said, "Excuse
Oh my
me," to no
gosh.
response.
Red
I
flags,
walked
yo.
closer to the truck
Like,
just to
what are you
confirm no one
doing?
was inside. Then I walked back to my car. This was weird. I looked towards
Lock
the trees
your
on the side of the
doors.
road. Maybe someone was pissing in the woods. I went
No.
back inside of my car and locked the door. This
Come
was
on.
just too weird. Suddenly, there was a tap at my window. I jumped. I looked to see a man looking down at me into the car, smiling. I didn't do
Man, if
anything.
he don't wipe that
I
smile.
said, "Hey, buddy, need a hand?" I lowered the window a crack and said, "Hey, I ran out of gas." The man said, "That's quite the predicament. Step out and give me a hand with this real quick."
Hell
When
no.
he said this, I thought he meant help him with a gas jug to fill up my tank or something, honestly.
Oh my god, he's
So I
gonna
stepped
freaking
out
do
of
it.
the truck and shut the door, expecting him to lead me to his truck. But he stood there, looked down at me because he was much taller, still smiling. and
Ew, what a
said,
freaking
"I
creep.
need to empty your pockets, please." It took me a
Mm-mm.
second to process what he meant. I was literally a broke college student driving a piece of shit pickup truck. I wasn't about to get robbed of the only cash I had and my phone. I ran for it in the direction of the trees. I'm small but fast. I turned around and saw he was chasing after me. Once I made it into the trees, I zigzagged all over the place until I seemed to lose him. Then I crouched behind a big tree to catch my breath. When I heard him approaching closer, I quieted my breath. I heard him say out loud, "I'll kill you, you piece of shit."
Ooh.
I don't know if he was just saying it out loud
What
out
a
of
little
anger,
threat.
or if he wanted me to hear it, but I was too scared to move. Even after I heard his footsteps move away, I didn't move. In fact, I stayed in this position the rest of the night, eventually laying behind this big tree up until dawn.
He's like,
I
well,
went back over
my
to the
truck ain't
highway
working
to my
anyway,
truck,
so
and the truck behind me was gone.
what am I gonna do?
My truck's doors were both open. I found that my glove box had been gone through and completely emptied of anything somewhat valuable. My flannel hoodie was also taken, which had something in the pocket, I'm sure. I finally managed to wave down a good Samaritan, and he gave me a ride to the closest gas station. I bought a fuel can, filled it with gas, and the man brought me back to my car, where I filled my tank just enough to drive the truck to a gas station to fill up completely. And I
Oh,
went
so
straight home.
sweet.
This was a real-life learning experience for me, that there are bad people out there who will try to take advantage of you when you're in a vulnerable spot. But there are also good people, like the man who helped me.
Hell yes.
When I was 18, I was very immature and naive. I was kind of a jerk when I was on the road, honking whenever I got impatient, borderline cutting people off. Looking back now, it was very stupid, and if I ever have kids, I'll be that much more strict with them as far as their driving. That being said, I did drive a lot for someone my age. I went away to school, 5 hours away from home. No matter what day of the week, traffic always gets atrocious the closer I get to home. So during breaks, I'll drive home at night to avoid this. It goes from a 4 to 5 hour drive down to a 3-hour drive. It was the beginning of winter break, as the fall semester just ended. All my friends left for home on the same day. I just waited till later on in the night to head out, because there's nothing I hate more than traffic.
Right.
I used to drive a Mazda 3 that I would beat the ever-living crap out of, and admittedly, I used to be known for driving my car to a near-empty tank consistently. People would comment on it whenever they'd be in the car with me, and I'd always assure them that the car would still have at least 30 miles to
You
go
stupid,
to
yo.
the
And look what's gonna happen.
I found out the night I was driving home from school that I was wrong.
Boom.
I was only like an hour into my drive on the interstate. The needle was on E, and I was pushing my luck, waiting for a
See,
gas station
that is
sign
why
instead of
I
looking
would
up
not
the
freaking
nearest
do
one
that
on the
freaking
map.
mess.
The car started making these weird sounds suddenly and
Oh.
jolting, and that's when I realized I may have actually run the tank empty this
Duh,
time.
duh.
I got off the
Screwed,
first exit
man.
ramp and hoped it would lead right to a gas station. This exit was dark though, with no street
Oh, hell
lights,
no.
and there was just woods on either
Oh,
side.
freaking no.
I was scared to slow down and lose my speed because I didn't know if I'd have enough gas to find a gas station. I blew through the stop sign at the end of the ramp and made a sharp, fast turn on the intersecting road, which was another dark road surrounded by woods. I was screwed. The car eventually came to a stop and the engine died. Things only got worse when I took out my phone and saw I had no
Oh.
bars.
No
I
signal.
have T-Mobile, which is the worst possible reception anywhere far from a major city.
Weren't
I
you
tried
feeling
calling
special?
911 because I was stupid and thought that 911 works even without reception. Of course, it didn't. I was terrified because I didn't know what to do. I turned on my hazard lights and just waited for someone to pass by. It was a long time before I saw headlights approaching. When I did, I flashed my headlights at them, and they passed me, made a U-turn, then pulled up on the grass behind me. I didn't know who was getting out of that car though. I was an 18-year-old defenseless girl. I just cracked the window down a little bit as this man approached my car. I told him I need help. I ran out of gas.
See,
He offered to give me
no.
a ride to the nearest gas station. He was this
No.
balding guy with glasses on. He kind of looked trustworthy. I had no other apparent options but to accept his offer. I got out of the car and followed him to his car, making sure to lock my doors first. His car was a black Honda, year probably a 2010. It smelled funky in his car.
Okay.
Couldn't
See,
think what the
red
smell could be,
flags.
though. He banged another U-turn
Girl, he is
instead of driving in the
kidnapping
direction
you.
He was driving before. He made conversation with me, asking where I was from and basic questions. I was honest with him that I was driving home from school. He said he lived in the area, and that they don't get too many out-of-towners getting off the interstate for this quiet little town. The route we were taking lacked any buildings anywhere. It was just woods everywhere. I asked if he knew of any gas stations, and he
What
said
a
yeah,
friggin'
just a ways
liar.
up the road.
I
started
swear.
hearing bumping and thumping coming from the back of the vehicle. It sounded like the trunk. At first I thought it was maybe just bumps in the road or a loose object in the trunk. He seemed to keep talking and talking, like he wouldn't stop.
Man, I'm like, if you just
Finally,
won't
got
shut
to a
up,
sort
yo.
of town-looking area. There were some lights and buildings at last. A diner and a few small houses. There was a red light at the first intersection since I got in his car. We came to a stop. And for
Oh
the
my
first
gosh.
time, there was silence. And then, I heard the unmistakable sound of someone screaming in the trunk, followed by thumps and bangs. I looked at the man who looked at me. In a split second, I unbuckled my seatbelt, opened the door, and ran, while at the same time he tried
Hell
grabbing
no,
me
get
and
your
pulling me
stupid
back
little
into the
hands
car.
off.
I heard him get out as well, but instead of chasing me, he ran to close his passenger side door, and then I heard him floor it down the street. I ran into the diner and asked for help, making a scene. I used their phone to call 911. I waited there. It became this whole huge thing, with multiple police showing up to the diner to take a report. Given the gravity of the report that I was making, that I heard someone in the trunk of the car, they had to get every last detail from me about the man's
His
car,
license
his
plate?
appearance, and where he picked me up. I was also given a ride back to my car so that they could also include the pickup location in the report. They also helped me get a hold of AAA, which eventually would come to my location to fill my car with gas. This was overall the scariest experience of my life. I was shaken to the core the whole rest of the ride home. I hope they found that man, and I hope whoever was in that trunk is still alive today. For all I know, that man could have been bringing me to his house or somewhere else. And I was just lucky I had a chance to get out at that red light.
Ooh, see? That is so freaking just crazy.
I live in Burke County, North Carolina, in Morganton. I'm used to the quiet lifestyle that comes with living in a rural place. You get some weird characters here and there, but it's usually nothing too bad. I own a nice plot of land with my husband. My work schedule fluctuates. Sometimes I work days, sometimes I work nights. This happened on a night that I was on my way home after a night shift, so it had to be like 3 a.m. My phone was almost dead, I was hungry, I was tired, and I just wanted to get some food and head home. I stopped at a gas station to get $10 worth of gas and also a packaged sandwich, which I proceeded to eat inside the gas station cafe. Some sketchy guy was eyeing me for a little until he left the building without buying anything. After eating, I went outside to fill up the gas, and then got back in the car. The smell of gasoline was extra pungent for some reason. These roads are very dark and twisty at night, so I was driving slow, especially since I was tired after a long day of work. Then something unexpected happened. The needle on the gas gauge suddenly dropped to E, and the low gas light came on and beeped. I had no idea what was going on. I'm not a car person, and I'd never run out of gas before this. Plus, the needle just suddenly dropped. I thought at first that the computer was glitching, so I pulled over and restarted the car. But the needle was still on E. I tried to continue driving.
Girl,
I started having a panic attack. I called my husband first thing, and thank God he picked up. I asked him how did my car run out of gas after I just filled up, and as I got out of the car, I smelled gasoline. I told him this.
That little creep.
It sounds like I have a leak.
That little freaking creep. I swear to you.
But then I heard a car coming with no headlights, and suddenly it stopped, not far behind my car. I suddenly thought to bring up that sketchy guy who was watching me at the gas station, and asked my husband if there was a chance he did something to my car. My husband's tone suddenly changed to sounding more concerned and worried. He said, yes, there's a chance that he may have cut my fuel line. I didn't know what that meant. All I knew was I needed to run.
Hopefully you're not wearing heels.
I took my keys out of the ignition and shut the door and locked it so that the headlights would turn off. My phone was on like 2%, so I told him to text me when he's close. I ran off the road and towards the first house I could find. I ran down the long driveway and up the property to the front door. All the lights in the house were off. I still rang the bell multiple times anyway. Eventually, a light turned on, and then the door opened. A man in his 60s opened the door. He looked like he was just woken up. I asked him to let me in to hide and charge my phone. After a bit of explaining, he opened the door fully and let me in. I asked him for an iPhone charger, and he said he'd go look for one.
You just can't trust people.
In the living room. I I sat down, still in my nurse scrubs, feeling a mix of emotions. The man called out from the kitchen asking me if I wanted some water.
No.
I said yes, please.
Woman.
Little did he know,
He
saw
could be
his
like,
reflection in a mirror in the living room that gave visibility into the kitchen.
You freaking idiot.
Fill a cup with water. I know for a fact I saw him drop something into the water. He walked out of view of the mirror, but the faucet was still running. It ran for a solid 30 more seconds before he turned it off. He came back into the living room with a glass of water.
Girl, you better not drink, I swear.
I thanked him, and he sat down and just looked
Girl.
at me, then asked me to explain the situation again. I replied to him I just really needed chargers so that I could contact my husband. He said, "Oh, right," and went upstairs. I checked my phone, and it was on 1%.
He's not gonna give you no freaking charger.
Remaining battery to send my current location to my husband just in case. I then smelt the glass of water, and although it didn't smell like anything, I knew he put something in it. Now I had to make the decision of whether I should leave or not. On one hand, I needed to charge my phone badly. On the other, I was 99% sure he did something to this water. I heard him walking back down the stairs, and he said he doesn't have any iPhone chargers since he has an Android. After he said this, I got up and walked straight for the door.
Yo!
Once outside, I ran back down the driveway to the road.
Was a setup, yo?
I couldn't believe two separate potential incidents from two different men happened in one night. I crept along the side of the road behind the trees. I took out my phone and sent my updated location, and right around now was when my battery
What a bunch
died.
of little creeps.
I
swear to you, like, hell no.
Of my husband's truck. I went out waving my arms, and thank God it was him. I got inside the truck.
God, can you imagine if he wasn't even there?
Crying to him about what I just went through. He brought us to my car, and there was no longer a car behind mine. My back window was shattered though, and it appeared someone had gotten into the back seat. But nothing of high value was left in my car to steal anyway. My car battery was also now dead. When I told my husband about the man who tried to potentially roofie me, he was so furious he wanted to go break down his door.
Come on, he should have.
Let's just wait for the tow truck to come. We waited quite a while before it came. My car was towed to my dealership, where they would take the car in the next day. My husband was right. My car was vandalized and the fuel line was cut completely.
He has nasty
I was off the
stuff.
next
Like,
few
screw
days
y'all.
because I needed some time to mentally recover from this night.
These little creeps can go screw themselves. Like,
I was almost the victim of some sketchy men I just couldn't get over.
No.
So this happened when I was 20 years old. I'm 22 now, so it's not that long ago. While in college, I was a babysitter during the week for a family, and sometimes I would nanny for this other, wealthier family on the weekends. They would go away often on the weekends and leave their 2 kids, so I would stay at the house for the weekend with the kids. They had a whole dedicated
babysitter gone wrong, huh?
And the family was super nice, so it was honestly great while it lasted. It happened in the fall. The leaves were all falling and it was chilly outside. I had gotten to the house Friday, and Friday night went completely fine. I just played with the 2 kids, who I'll nickname James and Jessica. James was 7, Jessica was 5. They were both cute and well behaved. Their bedtimes were 7:30 for Jessica and 8:30 for James. During the day I'd play with each of them with their toys. The family had 2 dedicated rooms for their toys. One for Jess, one for James. Jessica loved her dolls and doll houses. I spent a lot of time playing with her. James loved playing his video games, so I'd watch him play. These kids really had everything, and the house was gorgeous. It was a giant property with a big pond in the middle. It had a separate 3-car garage, and then a pool with a pool house across the pond, which was also a bar and rec room, with a pool table and darts, arcade games, and a giant TV and multiple sofas.
Damn.
This family was so well off and over the top that they even had an intercom that connected from the pool house to the actual house, so that if you press a button on the wall in either place, it would ring and then you could talk through it. The pool house also had a giant window that overlooked the pond and had a view of the house. So after the kids went to bed, I was free to do as I pleased for the night. It was great. I wasn't supposed to have friends over though. That was a rule I respected. I would just FaceTime my friends and watch movies in the pool house to pass the time.
Are you freaking kidding me?
It's not a bad place to have free time in, I'll tell you that. I started getting hungry.
So you're just gonna just freaking just leave the kids.
Entered the code to let myself in and went to the kitchen. They had so many snacks and food that I was allowed to help myself to. I grabbed a frozen snack from the freezer and threw it in the microwave. And when I was done, I went back across the property to the pool house. I liked hanging out in there more because I could be louder on the phone and have the TV as loud as I want without waking the kids.
Who freaking cares?
I was on the couch eating, watching the movie White Chicks, while texting a bunch of my friends. I was just in the middle of telling my friends how great of a gig this was, when the intercom beeper gave me a heart attack. I went to go press the answer button, and I heard Jessica's voice on the other end, saying she's scared because she keeps hearing noises.
Oh no.
Usually she'd sleep through the night, so I'd have to go tuck her back in.
Girl,
I set my food
listen.
down and ran back across the yard to the house. I entered through the door with the code lock again, and went to Jess's room. She must have ran straight back to her bed after we got off the intercom, because she was already back in her bed all scared. I went to tickle her and tuck her in, just so she wouldn't be scared anymore. When she felt better, I left her room, shut the door, and walked down the hall back to the kitchen to grab some wine. As I was looking for a wine opener, I heard the ever so lightest crack in the wood floor from another room.
Oh, snap.
I froze and looked in that direction.
Yo, someone is in the friggin' house.
I didn't want to start freaking myself out now.
Girl.
I didn't want Jessica saying she's hearing noises.
You are so freaking stupid.
I was thinking it was a regular house settling noise. I admit, I was
How
a little
clueless
creeped
can
out
this
now.
chick be?
They left the lights and TV on in the pool house, so I had to go back. I went outside, locked the door with the code, and ran across to the pool house.
Oh my gosh,
Sat back
she
down on the
locked
couch
that
and
freaking
resumed
psycho
eating rest of
in the
my
freaking
food.
house with the kids.
I didn't end up bringing the wine. I still had White Chicks on, though I was mostly just getting distracted on my phone.
So freaking laughable, I
And that's when the
swear.
intercom went off again, making me jump in my seat. I hurried to answer it, and when I did, there was silence on the other end. "Jessica," I said into the mic. I thought for sure I heard someone breathing.
Hell
That's all
no.
I could hear. I said both Jessica and James' names at least 3 times each. Now I was actually starting to become terrified. I called my friend Kelsey and told her I want her to come here because
Girl.
I'm actually getting really scared.
Girl, if you don't
Told
do
her that the
something.
little girl I'm watching said that she was hearing noises, and then I heard a noise, and now someone pressed the intercom button but didn't say anything.
Boo,
Felt like
yeah.
it was not something one of the kids would do.
Boo,
Still on the
yeah.
phone with Kelsey, who was telling me to stop being paranoid, but she also sounded drunk. I was looking out the window to the house the whole time I was on the phone with her. The hallway lights turned on. I told Kelsey this, and any ounce of possibility that it was one of the kids disappeared when a large figure stepped into frame at one of the hallway windows.
Well, hello.
Screamed and dropped the phone as I
Girl.
was looking at a grown man who seemed to see me.
And the fact she's in the friggin'
Back
pool
in the
house, like, jeez,
realized the intercom was still on this entire time. I picked up my phone,
Girl,
hung
you
up on
dumb.
Kelsey, and called 911. And as
Oh,
I
now
did,
you call
I was
911.
crying, screaming into the intercom that I'm calling 911 right now. Leave us alone. I was basically screaming everything I said to the police.
The worst
into the
babysitter
intercom. I
ever.
went back to the window, and he wasn't at the window in the house anymore. I was hysterical, crying, begging the 911 operator to please hurry up. She kept telling me to calm down, asking me a million questions. I kept yelling the address into the phone and saying please hurry. When she asked are the kids safe, I screamed no. They're in the house still with that
Yeah,
man.
thanks to that friggin' idiot
I heard the
babysitter.
scream of Jessica through the intercom, and I completely broke down and fell to my knees crying as the 911 operator was still trying to get me to keep it together.
Girl, quit being a
But I
friggin'
couldn't.
wimp.
I said I don't know what to do, and she said the police are almost there, you need to wait. I replied he has the kids, and she asked if I saw if the man had any weapons. I said I couldn't tell, but then I heard Jessica's voice speaking into the intercom.
This
saying
really
my
is giving
name.
me like that
I went over and
2006 When a
shouted,
Stranger
yes, I'm
Calls
here.
vibes.
Get your brother and get
That
out of
movie,
the house.
like, come
She was
on.
crying, saying
Like
that
this
there was a
friggin'
man in
similar
here.
plot.
I said, yes, I know. Just get your brother and come outside now. It was the bravest thing I had ever done, running outside back across the yard to the house and meeting the 2 kids who were already at the door. I grabbed
How
both of them
friggin'
and led them back
ironic.
across the yard to the pool house again, where we hid with the lights off. Both of them were crying, and I still wanted to as well, but I had to be strong.
Girl, you
and
should
keep
not be
it
no
together
friggin'
for them.
babysitter.
I still was on
Like,
the
screw
phone with
you.
911, and she eventually told me that the police are here, and that they'll come meet us at the pool house. Those words were the most comforting words I'd heard in my life. The flashlights of the police shone through the windows. I led the kids to the door, where we met a couple police officers.
And he
The
better
female
have
cop
not
took the
freaking
kids with her to
escaped.
one car. I went with another cop to another car. There were already 3 cop cars in the front of the house, and more kept showing up. I was answering all the questions I was asked, and then they found him. They brought out a guy who looked to be right around 6 foot. He looked at everyone as he was brought out in handcuffs and put in the back of a car. I still remember his face as he looked at me. He looked like
oh my gosh, straight up like 2006 When a Stranger Calls.
Jessica and James' parents were called right away and made aware of the situation. There was no way any of us were staying there that night. The parents arranged for the kids' aunt to come pick them up to stay with her, and I guess she called out of work the next day. I went
The parents would be like, girl, you are freaking fired.
When I got home
like,
that night,
bye.
I didn't sleep. I was still in shock, I think. I still had a leftover adrenaline rush. The parents understandably didn't leave their kids alone for a long time after that, I'm sure. I do know they pressed charges to the fullest extent, and with their resources, I hope that creep got what he deserved and more. I respectfully told them I couldn't stay there anymore because I was haunted by that night. I could only imagine how scarred those poor kids were, and maybe still are.
That stupid babysitter.
I was 28 years old, solo camping in a local woodland with my beagle Reggie, only realizing I wasn't as solo as I thought. It was November. The weather was still mildly warm during the day, but at night it would get cold, so I came prepared. I brought my portable fire pit, lighter fluid, a lighter, and an axe for chopping wood. I also, of course, brought a tent, a sleeping bag, and my fishing gear so that I could fish at the lake.
Okay.
I brought enough food to last the 2 days we'd be there, but if I caught some fish, I would plan to eat it. I hiked from my truck about a mile into the forest until I was near enough to the lake. I set up my campsite in a comfortable little opening, and I brought Reggie along with me to the lake to go fishing.
Oh, you
Caught
know
a couple
Reggie is
smaller
gonna
fish
bite.
that weren't really worth trying to cook, so I threw them back in. Reggie kept looking into the forest at something, and his tail would stop wagging as if he locked onto something. Could have been any number of little animals that he heard or saw. He's well trained not to go running off though, so I don't keep him on a leash. After maybe an hour of fishing, we went for a hike around the lake. When we were directly across the lake from our campsite, I looked over to the other side, and I saw what looked like a couple of people walking into the woods. They were so far away it was hard to tell, but they really did look like people, and they were right around where the campsite was. I didn't want to get robbed, so I told Reggie come on, and we made a quick pace back around the lake. When we got back to the campsite, my tent zipper was open. Someone had gone through it, no doubt. Surprisingly, nothing appeared to be missing, though. Not that there was really much to steal.
If he still stays there, I can't.
Still, I knew I was right when I thought I saw people.
Like, I am really listening to a bunch of idiots.
Gave me the creeps. To be safe, I spent the next hour or so moving my campsite to a different spot a little further up the lake.
Or just leave.
I started chopping some wood to get a fire going in the fire pit.
Oh my gosh.
Once that was going, I fed Reggie, and then heated up some chili for dinner.
You know they're gonna come back.
We sat by the fire, and I was writing in my journal when Reggie started barking at something in the forest.
Here we go.
It was dark now, and I didn't really see anything beyond what the fire lit up.
Not a surprise, please.
I looked out into the darkness, a little creeped out. On that note, I brought Reggie inside of the tent and went to put out the fire. If there were people out in these woods, I didn't really want to be advertising my location with the fire. I climbed into the sleeping bag, and with my reading light next to me, I was reading my novel. Reggie's ears would repeatedly move as he was hearing things that I wasn't hearing. He kept looking around at the tent walls. I kept saying, "What is it, boy?" He started to growl. He heard something out there. It could have maybe been a deer, it could have maybe been a bear, or it could have been a person.
It's people, yes!
A person being out there still, in the dark, to be more terrifying than a bear. Eventually, Reggie calmed down and put his head down. With that, I was uncomfortable and wanted the night to pass, so I turned off my lantern and went to sleep. I woke up hours later to Reggie growling and howling. I told him to be quiet,
You be quiet. Like he's trying to tell you something, you dumb idiot.
The kind of whistling you do to a dog to get their attention. Reggie started growling again.
Man, if Reggie can attack them, that'll be freaking nice.
Out there at my campsite in the pitch black darkness, and I was scared shitless.
Oh my gosh, like screw it off with your stupid whistling.
Mouth. Then footsteps started getting closer to the tent until they were right outside the tent.
Oh my gosh, if only he had a friggin' weapon.
Reggie was going ballistic, howling, and I grabbed him and got him to be quiet without saying anything. Without the crackling of the fire, there was total silence apart from the wind. Reggie started growling again, looking in the direction of the zipper of the tent. Silence, until finally, another whistle from right outside the tent door. Reggie went ballistic again. I tried to fake a really deep, commanding voice and yelled, "You better get out of here, I have a gun." But my voice just came out shaky and scared sounding.
Oh my gosh, you suck.
Walked away from the tent at a slow, heavy pace until they faded away.
He's trying to sound all like scary, but failing.
Not far from the tent, because Reggie kept growling on and off for like an hour after that.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't sleep after that, but I was too terrified to leave the tent and pack up everything in the dark. My phone had no service in the middle of the forest, so it's not like I could even call a family member or a friend to tell them about what's going on. And then, out in the distance, there was a woman's scream that probably echoed for miles. It sounded like a woman literally screaming for her life. This was the final straw. I grabbed Reggie, put on my boots, grabbed my flashlight, and ran. I ran the way I came all the way until I got to my truck. I still had no cell reception. I slept in my truck that night, and at dawn, I went back into the woods with Reggie back to the campsite. I collected all my things and disassembled my tent. I didn't even pay attention to if my things were gone through again. I was just in a rush to get out of there. Half an hour later, I had the truck loaded up and I was out of there. As soon as I had reception, I called this non-emergency police number that I found online to report a woman's scream and suspicious people around my campsite the night before. I don't know what became of any of that.
That woman's probably screwed.
What was going on in those woods, but I never returned to go camping there again.
Yeah.
I was home alone one night. Our house is a split-level house, and the upstairs is an apartment basically, so my brother and I live upstairs while our parents live downstairs. It's pretty nice. It was a weekend, and I was staying in. It was rainy outside, so my friends didn't really want to do anything. I spent the night watching scary movies in my room. I was watching Dr. Sleep, a movie I'd never seen before, and I was pretty invested in it. I paused it while I went to go grab a snack in the kitchen. I went to the pantry closet, grabbed a box of crackers, and then heard a sound from downstairs, which I dismissed as nothing. I went back to my room, shut the door, and turned the movie back on. I noticed the backyard motion light was now
These
on,
idiots.
And I heard some sounds from downstairs, directly below my bedroom. It sounded like the back door being closed. So to explain the layout of our house, my room is directly above the back door to the house on the parents' floor. The walls in this house are paper thin. You could hear a pin drop from downstairs. So I easily heard someone downstairs. And when I paused the movie, it became more obvious that I was hearing footsteps. I texted my family group chat asking who just got home. My mom answered within a minute saying, "We're not home." That would mean it would have to be my brother, but that would be incredibly weird since he never enters through the back of the house.
Come on.
He also wasn't supposed to be home tonight. I said in our group chat, "I hear someone downstairs. Alex, is that you?"
Oh my gosh.
I heard the footsteps crossing the house towards the front until they were out of earshot.
Oh my god.
I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. I turned off the TV.
Yeah, time to freaking go.
Straight down the hall to my room, skipping every other room.
Hasta la vista.
They were heavy footsteps.
Oh no.
They got to my door, and then my door opened. I was laying still in my bed, pretending to have my eyes shut, squinting just enough to see a head peering into the room through the doorway, looking right at me. It was dark. I could only see the person's eyes, and it didn't look like Alex.
'Cause it ain't.
I stood at the doorway, watching for what felt like forever as I laid there pretending to be asleep. After maybe 30 seconds to a minute, he closed the door, but I didn't hear footsteps walk away. I texted my family group chat in all capitals, "Alex, please tell me that's you in the house." He replied back almost instantly, saying, "No, what are you talking about?" That was when I told them someone is in the house. I called 911 and started whispering into the phone, and That was when I finally heard footsteps walk away from the door. He must have heard me start to speak, even in a whisper.
Creepy.
The footsteps went down the stairs, and then I couldn't hear them anymore. I was told to stay on the line with the dispatcher until help arrived. There was a knock at the door downstairs about 5 minutes later, so when the dispatcher told me I was good to go down to let the police in, I did. In my county, police work in pairs, so the 2 police officers who arrived looked through the whole house.
Nessa is freaking out.
Every closet, under every bed, and when it was determined that the house was clear, they left. One of my parents left the back door unlocked. It was as simple as that. There's no chance of sleeping after something like this happens. Nobody would be home until the next day, so I had to get through this night alone. A little while after the police left, the backyard motion light turned on. Something set it off. I looked out my window and caught just a glimpse of a man walking away from the house into a far dark corner of the backyard where I couldn't see him anymore. I think he may have tried entering the house again, but this time the door was locked. I watched through the window for as long as the motion light was on. When it turned off, it was too dark to see anything out there. As long as the light didn't go off again, then I'd know he wasn't coming back. Thankfully, he never did. Taking half a second to lock your doors can be the difference between someone getting in your house or not. Because my parents forgot to lock the door, I will now forever have the haunting image of seeing that person's head.
So you're freaking telling me that he didn't get caught?
Specifically, the eyes. It's an image that's gonna stay with me.
Their decision making though? That guys, that was it for this vid. Chill to explode. This chick is out. If you guys have any other vids for me, you guys know where to go. You guys stay lit. I am freaking out. Peace.